Hi, Scene Breakdown here. Today I'm going to explain a horror comedy movie called The Cabin in the Woods. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. Beneath the Earth's surface lives a cabal of ancient, giant, godlike creatures. The only thing stopping them from rising and wreaking havoc on our societies is regular human sacrifice. It is revealed that several secret laboratories have been established around the world to carry out this process. These labs find and sacrifice hundreds of young people every month to appease the godlike beings. In one such U.S. laboratory, engineer Steve is complaining about his married life to his colleague, Gary. The duo is heading back to their workstations when they are approached by the lab's chief chemist, Lynn. She anxiously reveals that a similar lab in Stockholm has failed its task. Now it is up to them and the Japanese lab to fulfill their quota of human sacrifices. Although they are shocked by the news, they reassure Lynn that they won't mess it up. Elsewhere, at a nearby university campus, Dana prepares her bag for an upcoming weekend trip. She is soon joined by her two close friends, Jules and her boyfriend Kurt. The trio carries their luggage and loads it up into a camper van. After a while, they are joined by other members of their group, stoner Marty and transfer student Holden. Kurt takes the steering wheel, and they make their way to his cousin's cabin in the nearby woods. None of these students know that they are about to be the next batch of human sacrifices. On the way to the cabin, the group passes through a mountain tunnel, unaware that they are now entering an invisible, one-way dome. They finally arrive at their destination, and everyone begins unpacking. Holden goes into his room, where he spots an eerie painting depicting a horse being skinned. Spooked, he takes the painting down, only to discover that it is hiding a one-way mirror. On the other side is Dana, who is currently changing in her own room. Holden quickly shows the mirror to everyone and switches rooms with Dana. "You guys can watch me change if you want. I don't mind," he jokes. At the lab, Steve and Gary are watching the youngsters through hidden cameras installed throughout the cabin. They are making final preparations to begin the ritualistic sacrifice. Meanwhile, the youngsters get the party started by bringing out booze and turning on the music. They play Truth or Dare, and it is now Dana's turn. Just as she chooses Dare, a secret cellar door blasts open behind them. While the rest of the group is stunned, Jules dares Dana to enter. Although hesitant at first, Dana refuses to chicken out and brings a flashlight to explore the cellar. She discovers that it is full of weird antiques left behind by the previous owners. Soon enough, the rest of the group joins her in the basement and explores the mysterious room. Dana picks up an old journal from nearby, and the group quickly huddles around her. It turns out the diary belonged to someone named Anna Patience Buckner, who lived in 1903 with her sadistic family, led by patriarch John Buckner. As Dana reads the last words of the diary, the corpses of the Buckner family mysteriously rise from a nearby grave. Later that night, Marty, who is high on weed, tells Dana that something weird is happening. He doesn't understand why Jules is acting like a dumb blonde when she's actually intelligent. Kurt, too, has suddenly transformed into a stereotypical high school jock, when in reality, he is a sociology major on a full academic scholarship. Marty shares his theory that there might be puppeteers controlling them. "I don't even like weed," he muses, but Dana dismisses his points. Meanwhile, the young couple starts making out in the woods, unaware that a room full of men is watching them. The engineers turn on artificial pheromone mists and light the way to a clearing where the couple can have their intimate moment. Everyone in the lab watches as Jules and Kurt make love on the ground. At this romantic moment, the Buckners arrive and stab a dagger into Jules' hand. A horrified Kurt is also impaled through the back, but he manages to punch down one of the corpses. As the scuffle intensifies, Jules runs towards her boyfriend, but she is chained down and dragged away by another zombie. Poor Kurt can only watch in horror as the monsters cut off her head with a saw. "I'd save you, but I have no idea where my hammer is," he mutters. Moments later, the engineers say a little prayer before turning on an underground mechanism. This drains Jules's blood into a pipeline below the ground, which eventually leads to a stone tomb. Back at the cabin, Marty smokes another joint to keep his mind off the voices he is hearing. He also decides to step outside to relieve himself. However, a bloodied Kurt appears on the spot and drags him back inside. Kurt then tells the group that Jules is gone and that they should start barricading all the doors and windows. Confused, Dana refuses to oblige and opens the door to look for her friend. This turns out to be a bad decision, as she comes face to face with a horrifying sight. The zombie of John Buckner is standing on the porch. He tosses in Jules' severed head. Dana screams in horror as the boys somehow lock down the door. Kurt tells them that no matter what happens, they have to stay together. "That's not how we like to do it, Scoob," Steve comments sarcastically as he watches from the lab. Upon hearing this, Gary presses a button that releases gas through the cabin vents, lowering human cognition. Kurt inhales the gas and suddenly changes his mind. He tells the group that they should split up so they can cover more ground. Shortly after, a zombie breaks down the front door, forcing the group to separate and hide in their individual rooms. The engineers then press another button, which locks all the bedroom doors. Meanwhile, as Marty is closing a window, he accidentally knocks down a lamp. He stares at the broken lamp and notices a tiny hidden camera inside it. Shocked, Marty pulls a long cable hidden within the walls of his room. This makes him realize that his suspicions are correct. Someone is watching them. Unfortunately, before he can inform the others, tragedy strikes. The window behind him bursts open and the corpse of John Buckner drags him outside. Marty fights tooth and nail to save his life. He hits the zombie with his thermos flask, creating some separation, but the corpse throws a dagger, which hits Marty in the back. The poor stoner collapses to the ground, screaming for help, but his pleas fall on deaf ears as the corpse drags him to a nearby grave. Just like before, the engineers open the pipeline and Marty's blood is drained into the underground stone tomb. The ground rumbles as the gods accept the second sacrifice. Meanwhile, Dana is trapped in her bedroom, panicking. She grows even more worried as an undead creature makes its way toward her window. Thankfully, Holden rescues her by breaking the one-way mirror between their rooms. He pulls her to his side and the duo immediately starts barricading the windows. This is when they find yet another trap door on the floor. Realizing there is no other way out, both of them escape through it. As soon as they land underneath, Dana makes a horrifying revelation. They have arrived in the torture room from the journal. The duo starts looking around for a potential exit when suddenly one of the corpses catches Holden through the trap door. It pulls him upwards, but Dana manages to stop it by driving a crowbar into its neck. She then grabs a nearby knife and angrily stabs the undead multiple times. Right at this moment, a door in the torture room's wall breaks open. The duo braces themselves for more zombies, but instead, Kurt comes through the door and quickly leads them out. Outside, they jump into their camper van, and Kurt takes the wheel to finally escape. Meanwhile, Japan has failed its sacrifice, making it imperative for Steve and Gary to complete the ritual. The duo panics even more when they notice the van heading toward the mountain tunnel. Gary realizes that the explosion to seal it hasn't been triggered. He rushes to fix the issue, and moments later, a massive explosion blocks their only way out. Beneath the Earth's surface, a cabal of ancient, godlike creatures lies dormant. The only thing preventing them from rising and destroying human civilization is regular human sacrifice. To ensure this ritual is carried out, secret laboratories around the world have been established, each tasked with orchestrating these sacrifices. Every month, they manipulate and eliminate hundreds of young people to appease these deities. In one such U.S. laboratory, engineer Steve complains about his married life to his colleague, Gary, as they head back to their workstations. Their conversation is interrupted by the lab's chief chemist, Lynn, who anxiously reveals that a similar lab in Stockholm has failed its mission. Now it is up to them and the Japanese lab to complete the necessary sacrifices. Despite their initial shock, they reassure Lynn that they will not fail. Meanwhile, at a university campus, Dana is preparing for a weekend trip. She is soon joined by her close friends Jules and her boyfriend Kurt. The trio gathers their belongings and loads them into a camper van. They are soon joined by stoner Marty and transfer student Holden. With Kurt at the wheel, they set off for his cousin's cabin in the woods, unaware that they are about to become the next set of human sacrifices. On their way to the cabin, the group passes through a mountain tunnel, unknowingly entering an invisible one-way dome. Upon arrival, they unpack and settle into their rooms. Holden discovers a disturbing painting of a horse being skinned. Spooked, he removes it from the wall and finds a one-way mirror separating his room from Dana's. He quickly informs the group and decides to switch rooms with Dana. In the lab, Steve and Gary monitor the young travelers through hidden cameras, making final preparations for the ritual. Meanwhile, the group in the cabin starts a party with alcohol and music. While playing Truth or Dare, Donna is dared to explore a secret cellar door that mysteriously blasts open. Though hesitant, she accepts the challenge and descends with a flashlight. The basement is filled with eerie antiques from the previous owners. The rest of the group soon joins her in examining the objects. Dana picks up an old journal belonging to Anna Patience Buckner, a girl from 1903 who lived with her sadistic family, led by patriarch John Buckner. As Dana reads the final words of the diary, the corpses of the Buckner family rise from their graves. Later that night, a high Marty confesses to Dana that something feels off. He notices changes in their behavior. Jules, usually intelligent, is acting like a stereotypical blonde, while Kurt, a sociology major, suddenly behaves like a dumb jock. He theorizes that they are being controlled, but Dana dismisses his concerns. Elsewhere, Jules and Kurt wander into the woods, unaware that the lab engineers are manipulating their environment by releasing pheromone mist and altering the lighting to guide them to a clearing. As they become intimate, the Buckners attack. One of the corpses stabs Jules in the hand, and though Kurt fights back, they are overpowered. Jules is captured and gruesomely beheaded, with Kurt forced to watch in horror. The engineers activate a mechanism, draining her blood into an underground pipeline, leading to a stone tomb. Back at the cabin, Marty hears voices and steps outside to relieve himself. A bloodied Kurt appears and warns the group about Jules's fate. As they barricade the doors, Dana unwittingly opens one, only to come face to face with John Buckner's reanimated corpse. He tosses Jules's severed head inside, sending Dana into a panic. The group locks the door, and Kurt insists they must stay together. However, the lab engineers release a gas that impairs their cognition, causing Kurt to suggest they split up. The group then separates into different rooms as the engineers lock all the doors. While closing a window, Marty knocks over a lamp and notices a hidden camera. Realizing they are being watched, he pulls out a cable embedded in the wall. Before he can inform the others, John Buckner crashes through the window and drags him outside. Marty fights back but is ultimately overpowered. The engineers drain his blood into the underground tomb, further appeasing the gods. Dana, trapped in her room, is saved by Holden, who breaks the one-way mirror between their rooms. They escape through a trap door leading to a torture chamber from the journal. As they search for an exit, a Buckner corpse grabs Holden, but Dana manages to kill it. They are soon reunited with Kurt, who leads them outside. The trio jumps into the camper van, with Kurt driving towards the mountain tunnel, their only escape route. However, the lab engineers realize the tunnel is still open due to a technical error. Gary rushes to fix the issue, triggering an explosion that seals the passage with debris. Now trapped, the group notices a chasm separating them from another road. Kurt devises a plan. He will use his motorcycle, which was attached to the van, to jump the gap and seek help from the nearest town. He revs the engine and speeds towards the other side. But mid-air, he crashes into an invisible force field, plummeting into the abyss below. Dana and Holden scream in horror and return to the van, where Dana deduces that Marty was right all along. They are being manipulated. Before they can act, a Buckner corpse appears inside the van, impaling Holden through the throat with a rod. As the van crashes into a lake, Dana struggles against the undead attacker, kicking it away and swimming to the surface. Meanwhile, in the lab, the employees celebrate, believing the ritual is complete. Since the sacrifice of a virgin, Dana, is optional, her survival is irrelevant as long as she suffers. Just as Dana begins to recover on the shore, the undead Buckner emerges from the water and attacks her. Back in the control room, a phone rings. Steve answers it, only to receive shocking news from the director. One of the sacrifices is still alive, meaning the ritual is incomplete. Meanwhile, Dana is about to be killed when the Buckner suddenly collapses. To her surprise, Marty appears, revealing that he survived. He leads her into a hidden underground tunnel, where they discover a grave filled with cables and a dismembered zombie. Marty had managed to kill his attacker and disrupt the lab's power system. The duo finds an elevator, realizing that whoever orchestrated the attack on them must be below. With no other choice, they descend. As the elevator stops, they see glass cages housing an array of horrific creatures. Dana suddenly realizes that they unknowingly chose their own execution method, by reading the journal, which summoned the Buckners. In the control room, Gary sends a security guard to kill Marty. However, as the elevator doors open, the zombie's severed hand grabs the guard's leg, distracting him long enough for Dana and Marty to eliminate him. They seize his gun and escape into a hallway lined with countless doors. A voice over the intercom urges them to surrender, but they ignore it and hide in an operator's room. Pursued by security forces, Dana presses a large red button, releasing all the monsters at once. The lab descends into chaos as the creatures slaughter the personnel. Gary, Steve, and Lynn lock themselves in the control room, but the monsters soon breach the defenses. Steve is killed by a monstrous merman, while Gary manages to escape through a hatch. However, Dana ambushes him, stabbing him in the chest. With no time to waste, she and Marty continue into a hidden chamber containing 5 stone tombs. There, the director finally reveals the truth. If they do not complete the ritual, the ancient gods will rise and destroy the world. The sun is rising, and Dana must kill Marty to save humanity. Overwhelmed, Dana hesitates before a werewolf suddenly attacks her. Marty fights the director, ultimately pushing her into the abyss. Though they have won, the ritual has failed. Accepting their fate, Dana and Marty share one last cigarette as the ground shakes violently. The movie ends as a giant hand erupts from the earth, obliterating the lab and signaling the beginning of the end.